Welcome back to Wired AF. You're joined by your hosts, Steph and Brandon. Today we're going to be talking about injuries and what it's like as an athlete or what it's like as a person like yourself recovering from an injury, or if you experience an injury, how to, go through it all and the process of it and how it feels, really.
Yeah, it's super hard to keep training, especially if you are injured, and because everything's painful and you don't always want to do those movements. And especially for athletes, I think, who are competing at high levels or who have goals and dreams to get these certain numbers or, do certain things, whatever their sport might be, it can be very, very frustrating when you're almost held back a little bit and you can't perform to your optimum performance because you are injured. But we just want to talk a little bit today about that and sort of how you can manage it, I guess, deal with your motivation levels, what it feels like, what you can actually do. And yeah, hopefully you guys get something out of it and feel a little bit better. If you are injured or if you do get injured, maybe you'll have a bit more of a better attitude towards it.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but we're going to come back to it, but please stop testing it. There's
like
a time
testing the injury.
Yeah, every 90 seconds. To see if it's still sore. Yeah,
You're the worst at this, Brandon.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that. But
Okay.
First, we'll just talk about, I guess, the motivation levels when you get injured. So say, for example, you really like doing a specific movement or you normally perform your normal training and then you cannot complete the program. So first off, I'll just talk about myself. I know when I can't complete something that I've been prescribed, I feel like I've failed and I haven't, I can't perform. I'm sure some of my clients might relate to this. I feel like, maybe I'll let my coach down or I'm letting myself down. But in the big scheme of things, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be the end of the world. And it's only 1 week. And the program is just what someone thinks that you'll benefit a lot from, not necessarily, following it 100% is going to lead to, some massive gains that you might be missing out on if you didn't complete the program 100%. So, in many ways, the way I look at my program now is more of a guide of what I need to complete. So as long as I complete these exercises and whatnot. So when you get injured and you can't complete that for whatever reason, and you lose a bit of that structure, it can be quite challenging. If I'm structured with my weightlifting and whatever other training I'm doing, I'm always, I quite rely on that also as a release. So it's very challenging if you do get injured. I can imagine for many people as well.
Yeah.
It's you can't complete your normal workout.
Well, that was going to be my next point, was that training is an outlet for a lot of people, or exercise in general is an outlet for a lot of people. And especially if you consider like the lockdown we're in right now, and all there really is to do is to go for a walk or do some exercise outside, or people who have gym setups at home, that's like the only escape that they kind of have. And I think maybe a lot of people find that anyway, even in their daily life without lockdowns, that their training or their exercise is like their escape and their way to cope and manage their stress and deal with the things going on with their life, and it makes them feel a lot better about themselves. We know that exercise has really positive effects on people's mental health, not just for physical performance and strength, but also, mental health. So when you don't have that, or you're hindered because you're injured, you can just feel really down and depressed, and you just don't feel like maybe you have that outlet, and you don't have any other coping mechanisms for some people as well. They might just go the complete opposite way and just want to sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing because there's nothing else to do. So yeah, it is a coping mechanism for people. And when that's taken away, or it feels like it's taken away, or you're injured, it can be really hard to just manage with anything going on in your life, not just the exercise and the pain.
And I think the more specific your program is, I think for myself, the worse you feel when you can't complete it because you think that there's nothing else you can do.
Yep.
And I think by making your training, if you have some variability in there in whatever way, whether it's accessories or not, or just feeling like, modifying it will still allow you to improve in your goal that you're looking. If your goal is weight loss, well then, there's still many things you can do and control.
Yeah.
But if, with something like weightlifting, it's very specific to main movements that you compete in. And then there's a bunch of other specific accessories that you would do. But there's still so many exercises that if you develop your upper body, it will translate. It will help you in the long run. It might take a few months to translate, but it will help you with your your goals anyway.
Well, that leads us on to our next point, is focusing more on what you can do and looking at what you actually can achieve out of your training or your exercise. So I like to give the example of deadlifts because I think a lot of people think that deadlifts hurt their lower back, or I'm sure plenty of people have hurt their lower back at some point. And, there are pretty high statistics saying people will hurt their back at some point, not from deadlifts necessarily, but it's one of those exercises people tend to fear because they think that it's going to hurt their lower back. And how can you modify that? That's how I would say to you, rather than think, I can't do this exercise, I can't deadlift, I can't do this. What can you do, or what variation of this exercise can you do? Maybe you can sumo deadlift. Maybe you can do a deadlift from the rack. Maybe you can do lighter weights. Maybe you can work with a kettlebell and do a deadlift with a kettlebell. Maybe you're just like replicating that movement pattern with just your body weight only. So think of how you can modify the same movement pattern and achieving the same kind of muscle activation without that same pain stimulus. So that's what you want to try and do to build up confidence in yourself as well, and still feel like you're doing something. Yeah, it might not be exactly the same, but it's going to give you a feeling in your body, the feeling that it's still working and it's still achieving something.
Definitely. And I think when we talk about what you can do, it's also important to then also consider, well, okay, let's just do something completely different to this, and just give yourself a complete, not saying completely resting from it. Well, yes, you're going to have your substitute, because you can't just tell someone, all right, well, don't do this movement at all. So you give them the substitute that can replicate it. But then in addition to that, there's so many other things that you can incorporate. So for example, there might be a lot of accessories that you may have neglected. There's still a lot of things that we can learn from bodybuilders, because there's a million different variations they use in order to load the same areas to create a different stimulus. So there's so many other movements that you can do, and you'd be surprised the way that might feel. It's a good distraction, I find, those different movements from actually, how does my pain feel? You can kind of get immersed in learning something new and not worrying about your pain and movements that you're missing out on.
It's very easy to get caught up in the pain because it's present a lot of the time when you are injured. Your pain's there telling you something's happening, and it's really easy to get distracted by that, I think.
And frustrated.
And frustrated, and not actually just do some exercise and do some movement, which will actually help. But sometimes it's easy to not think that it will help. So if you can find movements that are pain-free, then it's really going to help build your confidence that injured part of the body is actually building up the strength and it's doing something that it needs to do. And it's more that, I think it's more the mental confidence that is the hardest thing. Yes, there's the physical pain, but there's that mental aspect as well of the fear of pain. But focusing on things you can do. And if it's something different to normal, if you don't normally do bench press and you're doing bench press, like, that's awesome, because it's a compound movement. It's functional. It's a really great movement. So you might actually discover these exercises that you didn't realize you enjoyed or you wanted to do.
Even body weight is so humbling. There's so many gymnastics movements that are so hard and challenging. L-sits, I just feel like they don't get better. They're just so hard. But there's plenty of other things you can do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's why we spoke about earlier, it's so important to keep a positive attitude. And we don't realize the role of that. It sounds a bit airy-fairy, sounds a bit fluffy, a bit dubious. Keep a positive attitude, but that will ultimately keep you moving, and it will keep you active, and that will accelerate your recovery more, because we know, increasing blood flow moves nutrients to those injured areas, and it's going to accelerate recovery anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, you do. You really do need to be positive. And again, that's where like a health professional or a PT can be really beneficial at helping you find the exercises that are going to be pain-free or build up and strengthen those areas that maybe are a little bit weaker or have been neglected. So if you have help from somebody with some exercises, then you're probably going to feel a bit more confident, a bit more positive anyway, because you've had that advice. And look, sometimes it is a bit of trial and error. So sometimes even as a health professional, you'll give someone an exercise and it doesn't work for them, and it works for most people, but it doesn't work for that one. So, we do have to work together, but we can modify that and then find something else that works. And being positive, it does have really great outcomes on your injury and your recovery. So if you can try and be positive, have a support network, talk to people, try and keep moving as best as you can, whatever movement that is. If you're just going for walks, that's still better than nothing. So you got to find things that you can actually do and that you will do, because it's going to help your injury recovery.
so even working with a health professional, say you and I are working together, if I'm injured, I know that you are an objective measure on my pain as well. So
Yes.
I know when I train and, it might be an average session or whatnot, I'll be like, it's just getting worse. It hasn't improved in 2 weeks. It hasn't improved. And you'll say, okay, well, can you do this? And I'll be able to say I couldn't touch my toes without pain, and now I can. And you'll say, oh, well, you couldn't do that 2 weeks ago. But it's really hard in the moment to remember all these things to keep an objective measure on whether it's improving, because you might have had something, a stressful day, and can increase your perception of pain. And we've done a podcast, obviously, about pain quite early on. So I highly recommend. We probably have to redo that again.
Okay, we should. Yeah, let's do it again.
I don't know. But you can obviously see how there's, it's multifactorial. There's many things that influence that, but having someone who's more objective, maybe there's a bias of you because you want me to feel better, so you tell me it's improving. So that there's probably is a bit of bias there, but ultimately you're going to be better at measuring my pain as an outsider if you perform tests. Muscle tests on me, or whatever questions you might ask, opposed to me complaining that it hasn't improved, or for anyone for that matter.
Well, I do find that most people will say that they don't think they've improved at all. And when I take notes on patients, or when I ask people questions, I'll ask them things that are objective and that are measurable, because then I have something to go on. So pretty much what you said with the touch your toes, I'll ask somebody when they've got pain, what movement at the moment is causing you pain? Oh, reaching up to grab something on the top shelf. And then 2 weeks later, they come back in. They're like, oh, my pain's no better. It's so bad. It's not getting any better. And I'm like, how you going reaching things on the top shelf? Yeah, I could grab it down. I'm like, so it is better. I'm like, oh, yeah, I didn't realize. Or the pain scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much is your pain? Is it 1 or is it 10? 10 being the most, 1 being the least. And then using that, someone might say, oh, it's an 8 1 week. And then 2 weeks later, they come in and they're like, it's still so bad. It's not getting any better, but it's actually a 6.
Yeah.
That's an objective number that I can say, hey, you told me this number. You don't think that it's improving because of your mental state right now, but I can show you this is what has improved. So having someone who is an outsider, it can be really helpful.
Yeah, I don't know if we appreciate that as someone who's in pain appreciates it at the time, but it's worth it's definitely worth gold.
So then I guess the final thing that we want to sort of say, if you are injured and you're trying to keep training, is don't rush your recovery and try and just keep exercising, keep doing things you can do, but you don't want to rush it. So that means not jumping in too quickly into the things that were aggravating your pain.
You sent me a good meme. It was with Doctor Strange and somebody else, and it was saying, what was it saying? Doctor Strange was saying, don't max out. And that was the health professional, was Doctor Strange. Yeah. And you've just been injured. And the guy's like, I won't. And then he just walks straight into the spinning circle. And it's so true, because it's like,
as soon as you feel a little bit better, people want to be like, yes, I'm going to go so hard.
Max out.
But it's like, can you please not go that hard? You need to just ease back in. It's a process. You can't go from 0 to 100. You've got to go 0, 10, 20, 30. You've got to work your way back up.
And I think when you are in pain, you become really dumb, and you become really stupid. So you think that you've lost so much strength, and because of that, you feel the need to test how much strength you've lost for some reason, as to, I don't know why. It's just you do dumb things.
Maybe it's just you, Brandon.
No, I think a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people can relate. And I think, even with myself, I'm like, my squats have gone down. Maybe I should just test and see where they're at. No, don't do that. That would be the worst thing you can do. So yeah.
Well, the other day we were like, you said to me, you're like, Steph, if you weren't here, I was going to max out my 1RM. And you were in pain from doing step ups.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you do that? No. And you're like, yeah, I know, but if you weren't here, I would. So it's you can't rush these things, because you're just going to prolong your recovery process. If you're feeling really good and you go crazy and you do a 1RM test, or you just go for a massive, massive run when you're feeling really good, you're probably going to pull up a little bit worse a couple of days later. And maybe you're going to extend your recovery another week. So what you do is going to determine how long it takes you to recover.
And we're not saying to be in fear of an injury, but there are definitely times where rest is going to be the best option. And I think something that's been quite trendy in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, as far as we've been involved in health and fitness, is people saying, going against the advice of, well, someone tells you to rest 2 weeks. Let's just say that was the standard prescription for an injury. Now people are trying to continue movement, and we agree with, continuing movement, but I think it's gone so far where people try and find these variations where it still actually aggravates the same area. So sometimes resting for the person is going to be, just rest is what you need. You just genuinely might need mental and physical recovery from the really, really hard training.
You might need a couple of days. You might need a week.
Yeah, you just need to recover. And you might not even be injured. You might just really need to have a break from smashing yourself in the gym, and that is fine as well. And that doesn't mean you've lost your touch or you've lost your edge. You genuinely just might need to have a break. And I was talking to Nick from Active Chiropractics, very popular YouTuber, and he was saying the same thing. You just genuinely might need to just have a rest, and that's not a problem.
I think the longer you train and exercise for as well, you'd want to think that the better you understand your body, but the more you learn about how you respond as well. So, I've been training fairly hard these last few months, and now I'm like, I need a rest because I can feel niggles in my body. And if I kept pushing, I know that it would get
at the same
worse.
Intensity.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I need to back off. I just need, a couple of days where I just go for walks. And for me, that's rest, like going for a walk or doing some stretches or doing Pilates, like that's rest for me. But for other people, they might need absolutely nothing. Or for others, it might be just body weight exercises. So it comes back to the point we were saying earlier, find what you can do, find the exercises that you can do. Try and work on your weaknesses if you've got areas of weakness, or maybe just try different exercises altogether, like something completely different, so that then you are doing something. But it is also okay to have a rest if that's what you feel like you need.
Totally. Yeah. I think that was a really fun conversation. We enjoyed doing it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening.
Yeah. We'll see you in the next one.
We'll see you in the next one.